So welcome everyone to the Berkeley Law Career Series. We have another wonderful presentation today from Wilson Sonsini. Today we have Elizabeth Pond with us from the Austin office. And what you're going to find is these are interesting questions to ask if offices vary, if firms ever handle things on a firm-wide basis. And I think you're going to find the answer very interesting or intriguing because it's not necessarily intuitive. Based on the lore and myths about how firms operated many years ago. But today, the real goal is, how to make the most of your summer. So for the students that's going to their law firm, part of this is an interview of you. Part of it is you're interviewing the firm. And every one of you that's talked to me has heard me say the same thing. There's a firm out there that's great for everyone. There's a firm out there that's a nightmare for that same person, because firms are different and they have their own personalities, and you're trying to find the right match. And you've got to ask questions, you've got to experience the firms to understand that match. And one of the great ways, interviews are great, but one of the real great ways to understand firms is in the summer program. It not only lets you interview and understand the firm, it lets you really start setting a foundation for the next stage of your career at that firm if you stay. So with that, we have this great program on how to make the most of your summer, meaning how do you interview the firm? How does the firm get to know you? So with that, Elizabeth, thank you for joining us today. I like to see the sweater there. That means Austin is as cold as everywhere else in the country right now. So that'll give us a wonderful time to record.
All right. Well, thanks, Wayne. Happy to be here and happy to talk about summer programs. That is something that's definitely near and dear to my heart. I've been in legal recruiting for just over 18 years now, and I've had my fair share of summer programs. And I think it's a really great opportunity for new upcoming lawyers to get a sense of what their future may look like at a law firm. So in terms of how to get the most out of a summer program, I think there's probably three major sort of components that are really important things to think about as you're preparing and getting ready for your summer experience with a law firm. One of which, like I mentioned, is it's a glimpse into your future of what to expect as a practicing attorney. This is where you get a very inside look of what type of work the firm is handling, what level of associates are being brought in to work on those matters, what level of responsibility they have as first years, second years, and all the way up. And how they're interacting with their colleagues on a day-to-day basis. Those are all really important things to just observe during the summer program. It's also a great learning opportunity. There's so much going on in the firm, from different practice groups to different matters and deals that are going on. So it's good to soak up the information that's around you and take advantage of the resources and the trainings that the firm is setting up for you. And I'd say the final sort of point to really think about as you prepare for your summer program is what you want to get out of it. These are opportunities where you will get out of it as much as you put into it. So think about what it is that you ultimately want to get from your summer experience, and then calibrate accordingly in terms of, how proactive you are and what sort of experience you want to have, and put forth those ideas and effort going into it.
So I'd love to add one thing there on that, the effort piece of it, that this is something I saw in my careers, as a partner. It was interesting to see summers come in and say, well, you're never going to know offer anyone unless I get drunk and throw up on someone. I'm going to get a job. And then they act accordingly. They don't engage. They don't put the effort in. And it's true, maybe they won't no offer you, but they will remember you. It sets a tone for how people will interact with you. So I saw several times that people didn't put in the effort, still got an offer, but people didn't want to work with them when they showed up a year later. And they already had a bad reputation. And that may be more devastating than not getting the offer in many ways. So effort does matter. People remember you, you're building your reputation, and that's something in this industry. The only thing any of us really can control long term and own is our reputation. And it starts the day you start receiving a check for your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, reputation is definitely a key component to your success in this industry, and it's a small industry. I've heard time after time, and I've worked with people over the course of my time in the legal industry who have moved firms, who've moved into a client role, who've moved into just all sort of different roles, where I think it would have been where individuals would have been much happier had they not burned bridges, so to speak. So yeah, it's a small industry. You will likely come across a lot of your colleagues in the future. So it's always good to keep that in mind. All right. So in terms of the summer program, a big part of it is work, right? Like your work assignments, the projects that you get staffed on. So one of the questions that we tend to get is, what should I think about, or how should I approach, work assignments during the summer program so I'm getting the most out of those opportunities. And something I like to instill, whether you're, in the summer program or in your career, long term, is you should always try to add value wherever you can, no matter how small. Because if you are somebody that, an assigning attorney looks to as someone who's going to help rather than hinder an effort, they're going to likely rely on you more often than not. And that's just a good skill to have, is to have a reputation where you are reliable, where you are somebody who can add value. And this can be something, as a summer associate, something as small as taking notes in a meeting that the attorney can later, rely on, or you can summarize for the attorneys. Little things like that really do matter, and people do notice. So try to add value wherever you can, whether it's offering to schedule a meeting and put something on people's calendars. All of those things that might seem like mundane tasks are helping achieve the ultimate goal, and will be viewed very positively. Another thing to really think about during the summer is, this is a learning experience, and you are not expected to know everything. You're actually expected to know nothing. Everyone knows that summer associates, like this is your time to really gain knowledge and learn on the job by diving into different tasks. So it's important that you ask questions, and that you fully understand the assignments and the projects that you're given. I've come across several folks who failed to take notes during the assignment process, and later kind of floundered because they didn't have the full understanding of what was asked of them. And so it's just really important that you take it seriously, take notes, reiterate to your assigning attorney what it is that you are expected to do, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. It's always good to have that clarity before diving into a project, especially if you have a long-term project. You want to really have a clear communication, open lines of communication with your assigning attorney, so that they know what it is that you're working on and can and know what your progress is. So checking in on a regular basis with them is really helpful, and definitely appreciated by the assigning attorney. And it also helps save you some time if you end up kind of going down a different path than what was needed or expected. If you have those check-ins, it will definitely save you that time. The other big thing, which I've seen a lot, and I think is another sort of easy thing to get to instill at the summer program stage, but also throughout your career, is take deadlines seriously and don't miss them. Even if you think that you might get close to the deadline or you might miss it, it's always good to flag that for your assigning attorney well in advance, and they can give you guidance on whether that is a hard deadline or if they can push it, or if there's other things that you need to do to make sure that you meet it. It's just really important to have that open communication and dialogue so that you, again, can have that reputation of being reliable.
So Elizabeth, that's a great one, because people work with one partner or one associate that gives soft deadlines, and then another one that has hard deadlines, and you don't know who you're working with, and you've just got to ask. I mean, I always worked on hard deadlines. When I was giving work to anywhere from a summer to another partner, that I need this by 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday morning, because I have slotted my day. I've got 4 hours right then to edit the brief. And then the rest of the day I'm in meetings. And so if I don't have it by 8:30, I can't finish it. And I was always very clear, not only about the time, but why it was important to me. And look, I got to that point later in my career, after I'd been a bad manager for many years, and not so clear in my language and my assignments. But I think by the end I figured it out, because people didn't ask me enough and we got crossways enough, that I tried to be a better partner, better manager. But you can't always expect that. So the best thing you can do as a summer, at any level, is help your manager be a better manager. Partners aren't always the best managers. So if you can make them seem like they're better just by asking things like that, you improve your life, you improve their life, and magically you become the go-to person.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, so those are, I think, just some things to keep in mind as you approach projects throughout the summer. And I'd say the biggest thing to kind of hone in on is that it's a learning experience. Again, we expect that you're going to make mistakes. Like, this is the time to make mistakes, because you're learning and you're essentially starting from scratch. And so we really want you to embrace this flexibility and this opportunity where you have kind of the leeway to make mistakes, but it's important that you learn from those mistakes. So part of the growth of becoming a good, successful attorney is learning from your mistakes and not repeating them. So that's a big part of summer program as well, is making the mistakes, understanding what happened and how to do it the right way or a better way in the future, and then show that you can actually implement the feedback, and that you can learn from the experiences that you've had.
So Elizabeth, I wanted to ask a different piece of how to learn and how to manage assignments. I can tell you the biggest thing I feared going in as a summer associate, and I was embarrassed by it. I'm first generation to going into college. It was actually, my parents were first generation going to high school. My parents were farmers. They never had a boss, never been in a corporate environment, been self-employed their entire lives. Couldn't help me the least about understanding office politics, or just, it's not even office politics. It's just how to work in an office.
Mm-hmm.
And I was embarrassed to ask anybody the work I knew to ask about, but I didn't know how to work in a team or how to do any of those things. If you're coming in with that kind of background, first generation, not really understanding, what can you do and how do you navigate that piece of your summer assignment? Because my experience is not all lawyers are as forgiving about those types of political issues as they are work assignment issues, because they expect everybody had the same background that they did. So what would you tell somebody to do?
Yeah, so I would say use your resources. A lot of firms will provide you with various resources during the summer program. At Wilson Sonsini, we give every summer associate what we call a summer advisor, and that is a mid-level associate who's in their practice group, whose job is to be a resource and be a support network for their summer associate. And what we really try to do is encourage our summer associates to rely on them, to bounce ideas off of them, to ask them like, hey, I made a mistake on this assignment with so-and-so attorney. Is that, is this really bad? What can I do to show that I'm learning or my value? I mean, the reality is everybody works differently and everybody has different expectations. So it's really good to have somewhat of an insider who understands the dynamics of the practice group and especially of attorneys and how they work, and they can give them advice on how to navigate certain situations. So I'd say rely on your resources. If you don't have a mentor assigned to you, I think a lot of great sort of organic relationships evolve during the summer program as well as before, leading up at the interview process and whatnot. So if you gravitated towards a certain attorney during that process, use them as a sounding board, ask for their help and ask them questions. And I think that could be a good way to navigate, as well as the recruiters. A lot of the on the ground recruiters have pretty good knowledge of how different attorneys operate and how they can and how you can kind of get through certain situations. So I would say rely on your recruiter as well. And if they can't give you direct guidance, they can at least put you in touch with somebody who they think would be an appropriate person. And
That's a great piece. I hope everybody pays attention to. My experience is the recruiters in that office know more than anyone else, know more about the personalities, know more about what's going on behind the scene, and give better advice than any attorney that you'll find gives. I know you're probably not going to say that yourself, but if I'm in the Austin office of Wilson and I have a question, from what's the dress code to I think I just angered somebody, the first person I'm going to go to would be you and say, hey, what do I do? I didn't mean to. I'd like to fix this. And it's a non-threatening group full of more knowledge than you'll find elsewhere.
well, thank you for that plug. But yeah, I agree. We have great recruiters, and I know there's great recruiters and all the firms that you all will likely be going to. So definitely use them. They're a great resource. And there's also the training department. A lot of firms have really robust training departments. Sometimes they're called different things, professional development and training, but these are folks who are also very much dedicated to supporting our attorneys, and that includes summer associates. So we at Wilson Sonsini have a great training department who is very focused on making sure our summer associates have a good experience and help set them up for success. We have sessions that include, I forgot the exact title, but it's along the lines of professionalism in the work environment. So they do address some of those sort of questions that not everybody has had exposure or counsel from family members or friends that can give you guidance on how to dress, how to approach different situations. And we really try to make this information available to everyone at the firm so that everyone can have, access to this and have a successful, summer experience. So yeah, that would be my advice for folks who are coming into a little bit more of an unknown in a summer program, but there's a lot of uncertainty and insecurity by everyone. So don't feel like you're the only one who's not sure what you're doing or how you should be doing it. I think that's definitely a common theme amongst a lot of the summer associates. All right. So another big topic I know that comes up around the summer program, and summer programs are pretty notorious for this, and that is social events. We do make sure to incorporate a lot of fun elements into the summer program. I think that's one of the nice things about summer programs, that you not only get the opportunity to work on some great projects and get to know the attorneys, but we also try to create these sort of less formal sort of mingling and social opportunities so that you can get to know people on a deeper level and not just on a work related level. So these are great opportunities for you to get to know not only your fellow summer associates, but other people within the firm and within your office and within your practice group. And so one of my pieces of advice with these social sort of events is that you use these and you take these seriously. It's not just kind of fluff. There are actual reasons to attend these, and I think to get the most out of it, come prepared, trying to meet as many people as you can. The summer program ranges from firm to firm, but it's usually about 10 to 12 weeks. I mean, that's a good amount of time to meet, a lot of the people within your offices or within your practice groups. And it's important that you try to make connections with these people. Not only will it benefit you during the summer itself, but throughout your career. So if you end up, joining that firm as a fall associate, kind of already established this network of folks. If you decide not to join that firm, you go elsewhere, there's a good chance you'll run into some of these people in the future as well. So it's always a good idea to just try to capitalize on these opportunities to meet folks. And then
I want to say that, to put a finer point on that, these kind of social events aren't just for summer associates. You see them as associate retreats later on, partner retreats. Firms spend a huge amount of money on partner retreats so partners can get together and network and start understanding each other's practices, can start referring work to each other, because you're building all through your career this network of people that can refer you work, that you can help out, that can help you out when you have a question. And I can say I am long removed from my days as a summer associate, but two people that were not in my group, I was IP litigation, one was a corporate lawyer, one was a real estate lawyer, to this day are among my best friends. Never practiced law with them, never referred work to them, they never referred to me. Our paths didn't cross on that, but the friendships were always there on that. Made work a lot better.
Yeah.
So, it's just constant throughout your career, because really legal work is a team sport and people forget that. And you need to know who's available to you, how you can build a team, or if nothing else, at least, have people to understand what their experiences are.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so not only does it make your kind of work day more enjoyable, but it also has a practical value, further down the line in terms of tapping people who have expertise in certain areas that you don't, right? You know who to reach out to. You have a resource to ask questions. And in some cases, you know, you have an insight to a potential client. So there's a lot of really positive reasons to take advantage of networking and meeting folks. So meeting them is great, but there's also opportunities to take it to the next step. So what I suggest to our summer associates is, you know, once you meet people, try your best to follow up with them, especially with those who you have a genuine interest in the type of work that they do, or you just want to get to know them better. Make a note of that and reach out to them after your initial meeting. See if they have time, you know, to go to lunch or to grab coffee, and just try to keep that conversation going. You know, if they recommended, you know, in your initial meeting that you watch you know, read a book or watch a show or read an article, follow up with them and let them know what you thought of it, right? So show your interest and be proactive with continuing that relationship. It makes it much easier on the recipient to continue the conversation if you're the one that's proactively reaching out. I would also say, oh, sorry, do you have something to add?
Oh, it's a great point, and often I think summer associates to all the way through senior associates forget, you know, it's your career. The law firm provides resources, opportunities, but it's your career. It's how you choose to build it that's going to make all the difference in the world.
Right.
So that means you reaching out. You, like I said originally, if you've got a bad manager, help them be a better manager. Because I've seen a few old partners that are fine being bad managers, but most of us wanted to be better and not unnecessarily or accidentally torture people. Like, no, I don't want my bad habits to be your problem. If you help, take control, first of all, people are impressed by that. Second, you know, I think that you'll find your career path is better and smoother.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I would say about meeting people and taking advantage of these social opportunities is don't underestimate the influence that junior associates and even staff have within your firm. I know a lot of times summer associates like to focus on meeting all the partners or the senior associates who they think are going to be funneling all the work to them. But the reality is there are a lot of junior and mid-level associates who are the ones that are giving you the work. And the partners and senior associates are relying on those mid-levels to give them feedback on how you're doing. So that's just a word of caution. I've seen people mess this up before where they kind of were dismissive to some of the folks that they thought didn't have a real role in their career. And that backfired big time. So just keep that in mind that, you know, look at everyone that you interact with and that you meet as somebody who has influence at the firm and that can add value to your career.
Well, and I'll add to that. I can think of two of the no offers I have given were based on people not yelling, or I mean, those are the easy ones. Those people are just gone, but being dismissive of staff at any level, because hey, if that's how you're going to act in your best of times, how are you going to work at a 2 a.m. deadline and in the middle of the night? You know, you'll drive people out of a firm. So people notice if you're not good to everybody. And you may see some people with bad habits. Every firm has them, fewer now than there were 30 years ago. But don't be one of them. And especially don't start your career that way. It shows up. And when you know so little about the practice of law, you need a lot of people to help fix your mistakes. And whether that is somebody in document processing that can help you get to the right template, the right format for the right court, um, legal assistant, a paralegal, you're going to need everybody to fix your mistakes because you're going to make a bunch. And the whole goal is you clean those up before they kind of get further up the chain and you learn from them. But you're so dependent on other people, you can't afford to mistreat or even, I guess, ignore or be apathetic toward anyone that you're working with. So
Yeah.
my thought.
Yeah, so yeah, that's definitely a big a big piece of advice as you go into your summer. Going back to the social events, one thing that I would say in terms of kind of making the most of your experience is don't forget to be yourself. I know this can sometimes feel like a high pressure environment because you are more or less still interviewing for a job, but it's important that you feel comfortable in the place that you might ultimately work. And so, don't be afraid to be your genuine self, and to share your interests and your passions. It's okay to make those known. Obviously, you still need to be professional. But make sure that you're feeling like you're bringing your authentic self to these social interactions. And if you're, not comfortable for whatever reason, kind of just do a little bit of self-assessment there and figure out, well, what's not making me comfortable in this situation? Do I need to be, more open? Am I, is it me that's not sharing, or am I getting, sort of a negative response when I am being more authentic? And that's important information to have and to know, because this is some place that you could potentially be starting your career, and you want to make sure that it's the right cultural fit for you.
My experience is most people are receptive. Most people want to engage. I can share this. Was interviewing as a lateral move with another one of my partner colleagues, and she happened to be vegan. We were interviewing in Dallas, which is not known for its vegan-based diet. And nobody mentioned anything, but when they scheduled a dinner for us, we went to a restaurant, and it was a heavily meat-oriented place. And she didn't say anything. She just moved toward what she was doing, ordering, I think, the iceberg wedge, which was the only thing and broccoli were like the only things on the menu. And somebody across the table noticed, they said, "Are you vegetarian?" And she's like, "Well, I'm vegan." And they were like, "We can leave now. We're so sorry. We should have asked that. That was our fault." And she's like, "No, this is fine. I go places with Wayne all the time, and we trade back and forth. One time we go to a steakhouse, the next time we go to the House of Hummus." And it started the discussion where, a few people at the table hadn't been exposed to the difference between, being a vegan and being a vegetarian, and came up with this great discussion. And they didn't know much about it, or a few people at the table didn't know much about it, but no one cared. It didn't change anything in the conversation other than letting everybody learn and know more about each other. And that was such an impressive evening with the other side, who they didn't really have a lot in common, especially with eating habits, but they were very respectful. And that was the firm we ended up going to because of the way the other side handled that situation. California vegan, Texas meat eater, people might say don't go together sometimes, but it worked perfectly because what you find that most people are open and engaged. But if she wouldn't have said anything, then it would have been a disaster.
Right,
So,
right. You wouldn't have known probably if they were going to be receptive or not, and
right.
not knowing sometimes is more scary than knowing. So, yeah, that's a perfect example of, being who you are and not being afraid to let others know. Along those lines, I think it's important during these social interactions that you're engaged in conversation. So, showing interest in the people that you're meeting, asking them questions about their work, their background, their life experiences, interests, things that they're passionate about. And you may align with some of those and you may not. But even if you don't, asking those questions are showing that you're interested in who they are and that you're engaged. And I'd be surprised if they did not reciprocate, right? So a lot of times when you open up that dialogue, they will as well with you, and it's just a great way to get to know someone on a little bit of a deeper level. So those would be my suggestions for getting the most out of the social events that you will most likely see during the summer program. All right, and then diving in a little bit specifically into how to get to know the people who are going to be assigning you work. So the partners and the associates during the summer program. So obviously attend, these social events that we just mentioned. Also meetings and other sort of gatherings that become available throughout the summer program. A lot of practice groups and offices hold consistent, meetings that happen, on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. If you're not already invited to these, ask if you can sit in. And those are great ways to meet additional people and to just kind of hear the happenings of the firm and just get, more entrenched in the culture and what's happening. And again, follow up with the people that you meet. And see if you can continue that conversation. Whether it's they mentioned that they were vegan and you heard about a great vegan restaurant, and see if they've gone to it yet, if you guys want to check it out together. Anything that you can do to sort of continue the conversation and be on their radar is a good thing. Ask them out for coffee or to lunch. And everyone appreciates being asked. Not everyone will have time on that specific day or that hour, but at least approaching and asking is putting yourself out there, and it will be appreciated. And it also gives you an opportunity if they say no, that they're too busy on something, you can ask them what they're working on, and if they have if there's anything that you can do to help support them and free up their time. And this could potentially be a good way for you to find some work and get to work with them. So I'd say those are probably the biggest pieces of advice when trying to get to know the attorneys that you're going to be working with over the summer. Anything to add to that, Wayne?
I think it's all perfect. It's no different than developing real client work either. If you know someone, a client that's underwater, one of my favorite questions is, how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
And it works internally, it works externally. And if there's something that can be offloaded and you can take 6 hours of work off of somebody's plate, maybe it's a small project in an area you're interested in, that 6 hours may turn into a case that you're on, kind of the exact work you want to do, lets you dip your toe into something that you don't really know about, but you'd be interested in helping with. It's a wonderful thing just to watch people and ask, how can I help? Very rarely is there not enough work around a law firm to do. Sometimes that happens with the economy going up and down, but the people that do the best are usually the ones that are a little proactive and curious. I'm
Yes.
curious about you as a person. I'm curious about how you got there, curious about the work you're doing. Maybe you find a different career path. Maybe you find a modified career path just by talking to people.
Yeah, absolutely. the power in just asking to help is is much is much greater than I think sometimes we realize. So that's a good way to get to know the attorneys. But how about getting to know your fellow summer associates, which is also a really important part of the summer program. One thing I like to put out there, and I know this is true at Wilson Sonsini, and I know it's true at a lot of other law firms as well, and that is you are not in competition with your fellow summer associates. For the most part, firms hire based on hiring needs and with the goal of giving 100% offers at the end of the summer program. So rarely is there a space issue. It does happen occasionally, and obviously there's market terms that will impact that. But for the most part, you're not in competition with your fellow summer associates. If anything, these are people that are going to be a tremendous resource for you down the line. So my advice is be kind, be professional with your fellow summer associates, because they are likely going to be either your colleague, your opposing counsel, or in some cases your client in the future. So it's always good to make a good impression and to use each other as a support network, really, because you're all going through the same thing at the same time. And it's helpful to have one another for just for like sanity checks and just to kind of use each other as sounding boards and whatnot. So so look at them as a resource and try to help each other out. You may not go through something that one of your fellow summer associates does, but if they go through it and you talk through it and it happens to you later, then you at least have kind of that reference point. So you can learn a lot from each other. So I encourage you to use one another for that purpose, but also, like I said, it's an investment in sort of your future as well.
That may be the headline for this entire presentation. You're not in competition with your fellow summer associates. Well, first of all, I mean, if we hear about it at the university, that people are extending more offers than they intend to give, we're going to advertise it. There are no offers, and we understand downturns. I mean, I lived through 2001, 2003, 2008. I saw what happens in the market. But the summers, most firms will do things like delay starting dates, anything they can to make sure they've got work and everybody that they brought in gets to continue. There are some stories out there, but everyone that I'm aware of has always been something happened in the market. Firms intend to hire everybody. And if you get caught undermining just even the hint of undermining a fellow summer associate, that tells people how you're going to be in the practice of law. And this is, again, it's a team sport. And if you're not willing to be a team player, not sure this is the right place.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, I guess to sum it all up, how to get the most out of your summer and how to sort of leave a good impression is, take it seriously. The summer program is a great opportunity. And remember, not only are you being evaluated, but this is an opportunity to evaluate the firm and make sure this is the right place for you. And regardless of you, whether you stay with that firm or move on to another career path, you're going to be taking a lot of great information and skills that you learn and develop there on with you. So this is just a really good foundation for you to just build your skills and meet people and network and have sort of that opportunity to draw from in the future. So take it seriously, make sure you're doing everything that is within your control, like, being on time for meetings and, meeting deadlines and, showing that you can learn from, your mistakes, and being engaged, with asking the questions, being aware of what's happening around you, read your email alerts that come out. A lot of firms push out weekly email alerts of what's going on. That's low-hanging fruit. You can just, if you soak up all that information, it's going to help you. To help you have conversations with attorneys, it's going to help you have insight into who's working on what, and just give you all sorts of opportunities to network and progress. And then finally, add value. Do good work. This is your opportunity to shine and show people that you're a hard worker and that you can be of value to them. So be that reliable resource. And I think if you are able to manage all that, you'll definitely leave a good impression.
Wonderful. If people follow this advice, I think they'll have a good summer. They'll have a good understanding of the people they'll be working with, and let people understand who they are too, which is important all the way around. So I think it makes me just think through all the years from when I interviewed as a partner, as an associate, to how many associates I've hired through the years, both lateral and both laterally and through the summer program. And this is a roadmap to what I wish I would have done better as a summer associate. I kind of hacked my way through it in a terrible way. Worked out, maybe by luck more than skill. Not the right way to do it, but it's good advice, and I hope people follow it.
All right. Well, thank you, and good luck to everyone.